Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this channel. My name is Zubair Charles. I am an English home language teacher. I've been teaching for the past 5 years. I've also just recently had the privilege of working at the Matric Marking Center, marking poetry for English home language paper 2. So, hopefully, I can relay some of the skills and knowledge that I've learned during that process with you guys watching this video. The goal of this channel is, like I've explained before, to provide a different voice to learners. It's oftentimes it's not that learners don't understand the poetry. Most of the times it's just that they struggle with relaying the content knowledge that they've acquired in the exam on the exam answer sheet. So many students often struggle with, well, how do I answer the poetry? And to the teachers out there as well, if you are watching, hopefully, some of the methodologies that I use within this lesson you can also use in your classroom. Lastly, I'm completing my master's degree in creative writing at the University of Cape Town. And on that note, a bit of self promotion. But before we get there, I noticed that there was an error on the previous video, on the previous slides, and the previous videos. So I meant to say I also write short stories, non-fiction essay and poetry and plays. If you want to check out some of my non-fiction essays, the links are in this description below. And if you want to check out some of the poetry that I've written, then you can check out my Instagram page. The link is also below. Right. So firstly, we're going to complete our introduction. So for the teachers that are watching now, this is a bit of educational theory. Within any introduction, you have to test the learner's prior knowledge, the everyday knowledge. As a teacher, we must not make the mistake to assume that the learners don't understand things or that they don't have a foundation or a knowledge base on a particular topic. So it is our duty as teachers to link or to bridge the gap between the learner's prior knowledge, the everyday knowledge, with the content knowledge that we will be covering in a particular lesson. So, for example, learners interact with other students their age or learners their age. They interact with their older siblings, with their parents, with other teachers, with people in their communities, right? And that knowledge, that acquired knowledge, it's not a formal type of education, but the knowledge that they acquire, or perhaps they check something out on Google or on social media, and that knowledge that they acquire is part of their everyday knowledge, right? So within the introduction of every lesson, you have to use what is called probing questions, right? So you link or you create an inciting thought within them in which you say, okay, learners, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and the sparks are going to start to light up in the classroom. Unfortunately, we are not in a formal classroom. This is on YouTube. So we can't interact there with, or we can't feed off of other learners' answers, and we can't create a discussion. However, if you want to, you could perhaps answer some of these questions in the comment section below, or it would be even nicer if you could chat to maybe a parent, to an older sibling, or to a friend that's also studying this poem, and you can interact with these questions. So firstly, I would like to ask, have you ever lost anyone close to you? I'm sure at some stage of our lives we've all experienced loss. Excuse me, and how did that experience make you feel? So it would be nice if you could pause in between, think about the answers to these questions, maybe write it down, etc. I'll go to the next question. Have you ever been in love before? So many of you guys that are watching are teenagers. So I'm sure at some stage you've experienced puppy love. So I'd like to know what that experience was like. Maybe you can leave it in the comment section. But think about that. It's very important. It's a very important thing to think about when we are dealing with this poem. And do you think that love lasts forever? If you say yes, why? If you say no, why? Right? I think that's a nice open-ended question, right? Because obviously people will have different opinions on this topic. And then lastly, how long do you think it would take you to accept the death of a person you're in love with. Okay, so you fell in love, you got married, or um, you were in a very long relationship with the person that you loved, and after many, many years, that person unfortunately dies. Death is inevitable. So once that happens, once the death occurs, think about it. How long do you think, you know yourself best? How long do you think it would take for you to accept the death of that loved one? Okay, funeral blues, W.H. Auden. For now, I'm not going to read any background information with regards to the poet. I'm going to jump right into the poem. So, we're going to look at the title. So, many of you should know what a funeral is. It's a formal service held for someone deceased, and in this context, the person that died is the speaker's beloved or their lover. Um, Always think about the title, guys. So, you think about funeral blues. Why did the speaker, why did the poet um, name the title or title this poem as Funeral Blues? Why not another word for blues would be sadness, or why not the sadness occurred after death or something like that? There's obviously a reason why um, the poet used the title Funeral Blues. So think about that. And if you have to break it up, we're going to dissect blues now. The term blues refers to a depressed or sorrowful feeling. So if you say, oh, I'm feeling blue today, it would mean that you're feeling very sad, right? But we're going to avoid the word sad. So we're going to say depressed or sorrowful, right? And that is appropriate because this poem is about grief. Furthermore, the term blues can also apply to a musical genre called blues, which is characterized by a soulful and melancholy mood it creates for the listener. So, melancholy, I love that word. It refers to sadness, deep sadness. Okay, going to read the poem now. Funeral Blues. Stop all the clocks, cut off the telephone, prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone. Silence the piano, and with a muffled drum, bring out the coffin, let the mourners come. Let aeroplanes circle, moaning overhead, scribbling on the sky the message, he is dead. Put creep bows round the white necks of doves, let the traffic policemen wear black cotton gloves. He was my north, my south, my east, my and west, my working week and my Sunday rest, my noon, my midnight, my talk, my song. I thought that love would last forever. I was wrong. The stars are not wanted now. Put out everyone. Pack up the moon and dismantle the sun. Pour away the ocean and sweep up the wood, for nothing now can ever come to any good. Okay, guys, so a very brief summary. The speaker laments, so laments means an expression of severe grief, the death of someone close to him. In the poem, the speaker goes on to express his grief by describing what he wants to be done to show mourning. So in the poem, it says, okay, my lover died and I want the following to occur because of that. I'm just going to skip this point and go to the last point quickly. The concluding line of the poem reveals the finality of death. So we all know that death is inevitable, right? We all unfortunately are going to die one day, right? And how there is nothing good that can come from death. So, of course, those who die, the loved ones they leave behind, unfortunately, they have to deal with the death of that person. And I'm just going to jump up one point. The poem is written in first person point of view. Why? Because the speaker uses the pronouns I and my, and it gives it a personal feel um, to the poem because it's the speaker's personal account of of their feelings of when their beloved died. So stop all the clocks, cut off the telephone. What does that mean? So clocks refers to time, and when we say stop all the clocks, cut off the telephone, those are imperatives, meaning commands or instructions that you give to somebody. And the speaker wants the world to stop the time, right, and to the halt the process of communication. So stop all time. My loved one died. I don't want time to continue. What is time for the speaker? The speaker feels maybe lost in time, right? And he's saying, stop all the clocks, right? Because my lover has died. I want all the time in this world to stop. And then cut off the telephone. I don't want any communication to occur. Because the speaker's beloved has died, he no longer wants to take part in those daily activities, right? Of being human, right? Such so he wants to remove contact from others. Okay, time has stopped for him, and because his beloved has died, and ultimately, like I've said before, the speaker doesn't want to communicate. Clocks indicate normality, the passing of time. However, by stopping the clocks, the speaker wants other people's normality to cease. So, for example, you and I and our time, he wants his beloved's death to also affect everybody else and their time. Okay, he wants people to relate to his grief. The death of his loved one is so momentous that he feels that the world cannot continue. Okay, I'm going to skip that last point, it's not relevant. Prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone. It is believed that if a dog barked at a funeral, more people would die. It's just a silly superstition. Um, so this, so the speaker, remember, said, "Stop time, stop communication, and also I don't want no talking or no sounds. Even prevent the dog from barking. Wow, that doesn't make sense. The dog from barking." Okay, so I'm going to continue. Silence the pianos and with a muffled drum. The speaker doesn't want to hear the sound of a piano, right? So I'm not sure. Um, I'm assuming it was perhaps a custom for pianos to be played at funerals, right? But in this context, the speaker says, I don't want to hear the sound of a piano. Instead, I want to hear the sound of a muffled drum, right? So look at the picture there. A muffled drum refer to? So in this context, it was a custom when a military soldier dies for a muffled drum to be played, right? And the drum creates a mournful and sorrowful sound that mirrors how the speaker is feeling, right? So it's as if he wants like a public announcement to be made, right? If somebody died in the military, the men would be walking in the street and they'd be playing the drums. So he's saying, for my lover, I want the same. Okay, I'm going to skip that. The speaker lost their loved one, hence him not wanting to hear the happy sound of a piano. I'm not sure if we could necessarily associate the piano with a happy sound, but like I said, no sound of the piano, he wants the sound of a muffled drum. And with that sound of a muffled drum, they must bring out the coffin and let the mourners come. So once those careful preparations have been made, all those imperatives in lines 1 to 3, so the stopping of the clock, the stopping of communication, the stopping of a dog barking, and the stopping of a piano being played, and instead play the muffled drum, then bring out the coffin of his beloved, and then the mourners can come. Okay? Let aeroplanes circle the moaning overhead. Right? So think of the sound that the aeroplane makes, that moaning, not the moaning sound, but the sound of the aeroplane's engines very loud above us. The speaker's comparing that sound of the engine to the sound of moaning. But moaning was also an onomatopoeia, right? And the continuous crying or moaning of people at the funeral would also sound like an engine moaning, right? The sound of the aeroplane represents the mood that the speaker is feeling. Right? So picture that, right? That loud sound of the aeroplane flying above you. So it's as if so compare the speaker's grief and the um, moaning sound that the speaker is making also to the sound of aeroplanes. Okay. I just want to check what's the next line. Okay. So he says he wants, let the aeroplane circle moaning overhead. Let the aeroplanes also make that moaning sound. Okay. So I'm just going to read that again. The onomatopoeia suggests that even the aeroplanes are grieving for the death, as the sound is an outward display of sorrow and lamentation by both the speaker and the aeroplane's engines. Okay? The sound of the aeroplane's engines are described to be moaning, right? The speaker's grief is so immense that even the aeroplanes flying in the sky shares grief. An aeroplane can't make a moaning sound. An aeroplane can't make an aeroplane can't talk. An aeroplane can't cry. An aeroplane can't express grief. So that is obviously personification, right? It's an inanimate object that's given a human characteristic. Then another personification, scribbling on the sky the message he is dead. So, so think about if you had to scribble, right? There's a bit of a contrast here. So scribbling and then writing a message he is dead, right? So it's weird that the speaker would make that description. Um, but okay, it's also written in capital letters. So let's kind of figure out what is this weird line. Scribbling on the sky, the message he is dead. Why does the speaker want the message in the sky? So the speaker wants this message depicted across the sky for all to see. And this displays how the speaker wants to project his grief to his entire surroundings so that the world should mourn with him. Okay, everybody must see the message. He is dead, right? So think about the contrast between stanza 1 and 2. In the beginning, he said, stop the clock, stop communication, stop the dog from barking, stop the pianos, right? It's a very contained, the the imperatives that he's giving is you think of his home, right? He's inside his home and he's saying, I don't want the following to happen, right? Or can you guys ensure that the following is going to happen? Now it's gone from outside of his home and now it's become public. Now he's saying, okay, I want everybody to see my lover has died. Okay? So think about this, the pronoun he in poetry. Oftentimes, poets will use pronouns he and she. Why is this done? Right? So he didn't say, the poet didn't say Johnny is dead. He said he is dead. So it gives us a generalization of loss of a loved one, right? So somehow we've all known a man that has died in our lives. So the he can be applied to that person, right? So think about that. It's a generalization. The reader must place themselves in the shoes of the speaker, as we all have experienced loss and grief, thus making the poem universal. He is in capital letters. It emphasizes the importance and impact of this loved one. The capital letters indicate the importance of the loved one in the speaker's life and emphasize the intensity of his grief he's experiencing. Okay, I've just said that now. And the capital letters create the impression that the person who has died is of significance, importance in society as well. Everybody must grieve. Everybody must know that this person has died. But also there's a capital letter of the D, and that refers to the finality of death. Okay? Attention. Look here. It's not a small letter, it's a capital letter. It's big. Look at it. Put creep bows around the white doves, around the white necks of the public doves. So the speaker's imperatives are now, like I said, are going public now. It's not anymore in his house, in his immediate surroundings, right? The outside world must also know. Okay. So the creep bows depict that the doves would have been decorated to indicate that everyone should be mourning this loss. Okay. Public. Everybody must know. So just think about that in the stanza. Let the traffic policeman wear black cotton gloves. So we in South Africa, we're not really familiar with traffic policemen wearing white gloves. So he's saying, let them wear black gloves. Okay. So the speaker wants the death of his beloved to be elevated as he wants the death to be recognized by everybody. So think of the traffic policeman. So many thousands of people in traffic. So it's as if this policeman is passing that message to everybody. This is a very nice image, guys. He was my north, my south, my east, my west. Look at the compass on the top. The compass shows north, south, east, and west. If you use a compass, what is the compass used for? To show you direction. I suppose we can't really relate because we use Google Maps, or we would Google, or if we Uber, we would just type in the address, or Taxify, or Bolt, right? Not discriminating, nonetheless. So this compass that you use shows you direction. It will say, okay, here's north. I must walk this way or that way to get to this destination. So the speaker uses a metaphor, and the speaker is alone and has lost his direction in life because the beloved was like a compass for him. He guided the speaker, right? And the four compass points emphasize that the deceased was an important part of every aspect of his life. He wasn't just his north, he was his south, his east, his west. He covered all sections of his life. Okay, and without him, he's lost and he does not have direction. Then he also said he was my working week and my Sunday rest. So you know the routine. You go to work every day, you go to school every day, you come home on a Sunday, you rest. That is your routine. But now that the beloved has died, the speaker doesn't have that consistency and routine anymore. Okay, look at the picture. It's a nice picture, cute. My noon, my midnight, my talk, my song. The speaker uses the repetition of the possessive pronoun my. He was my noon, my midnight, my talk, my song. Right? A sense of belonging, a sense of possession. This is mine. I take ownership of this. Right? That was shared within the relationship with his beloved. There was possession shared in the relationship. Due to the beloved not being alive any longer, the repetition of my emphasizes the devastating sorrow and loss as the reader understands the intimacy they once shared. Just change that. Okay. I thought that love would last forever. I was wrong. So I think we all have this idealistic view of what love is, and it's going to last forever, and I'm going to be with this person forever. And you can argue that perhaps after death, we can still love somebody. So, what is your opinion? Do we stop loving somebody when they die? But the speaker no longer believes in love. Love is a delusion, and the speaker has become realistic. It's like, oh my word, my beloved has died now. I thought it was going to last forever, but I was totally wrong. Why? Because death is inevitable. Inevitable means that it's going to happen. Right? You can't stop it. The speaker is feeling despair. Despair means hopelessness. Right? There's no hope. As the speaker is confronted with the reality of death, he is suddenly made aware that the love they shared was fixed and was not fixed and would not last forever. He sees no hope for the future and he has lost its meaning. So I just want to fix this as well. Okay, let's continue, guys. The stars are not wanted now. Put out everyone, pack up the moon, and dismantle the sun. So think about the imperatives he made in stanza 1. He said, I'm going to remind you guys again, stop the clocks. I think it was cut the telephone, stop communication, stop the dog from barking, and all of those things. And then he also referred to public imperatives of what can happen outside of his home. But now think of this highly exaggerated actions. The stars, I don't want to see any stars anymore. Right? Put out every star. How can you put out all the stars in the galaxy? That's impossible. Pack up the moon, and how do you pack up the moon? You can't pack up the moon. How do you destroy the sun? Right? So now the speaker is becoming um, his actions are being highly exaggerated, right? So it's becoming super irrational now. Okay? So the speaker cannot face the emotion and instead wants to alter the universe. This represents how one takes time to accept death, right? Think of the impossible things he wants to happen. The speaker's star has been effectively put out, the star in his life, right? The sun in his life. So he wants the literal sun and moon to be eradicated. The world has changed after the death of his loved one. Okay, so the speaker is experiencing intense despair and grief due to the loss of his beloved. The speaker makes hyperbole, exaggerations, um, hyperbolic commands, and this reveals that the speaker is out of touch from reality, as it is impossible to eradicate the stars, the moon, and sun. Okay, so I've explained that just now. This contributes to the overall somber mood of the poem, as the hyperbolic commands enable the reader to experience the speaker's grief as well. Excuse me. The speaker makes a command to dismantle the stars, moon, and sun. However, this act would be obviously considered unrealistic. The use of the term dismantle reveals that the speaker is despondent, right, to the real world due to the loss of his beloved. Okay. Pour away the ocean and sweep up the wood. Okay. So, the speaker's life has changed after the death of their loved one. Now, all life must also be changed. Okay. This could represent the frantic state of mind that the speaker is in. These extremely exaggerated commands are done to indicate the absolute depths of the poet's sorrow. Okay, where are we looking now? For nothing now can ever come to any good. The last line reveals that the death of the speaker's beloved has devastated the speaker to the point that he feels without purpose, that he's totally lost, that, and that there can be no good in this world. After the death of his beloved, the speaker cannot find any happiness or hope within life. Um, Sorry, I got lost there for a moment. Due to the speaker's despair, the poem's central message, theme, idea reveals to the reader that what intense feeling of loss can cause when one loses someone close to them. Right? So the poem is trying to show you this is what extreme loss looks like. Right? And that the reader is reminded that due to the speaker's unrealistic view of life, the reader must also realize that life must go on after death. So when we read the poem, when we come to the end of the poem, we must realize that, but life goes on, okay? So, tone. When you think of tone, you think of ringtone. When you think of a ringtone, it makes a sound, right? So, when you think of tone, it means how do the words in the poem sound? Okay, how do the words in the poem sound? Meaning the speaker that is telling us the story, and I use that term very lightly because you think of a poem, you think of a story. So the speaker that is the voice inside the poem, how does that voice sound? What is the emotion or the feeling that we can attach to the speaker? Right? So the poem is depressed. I'm going to scratch out the word sad. We don't use happy and sad, right? Grade 12s, think of different words: depressed, melancholic, sorrowful, and to a certain extent, desperation. Right? How does the speaker sound? The speaker sounds depressed, melancholic, sorrowful, and desperate at times. The use of the first person narrative, the I, personalizes the experience of reading the poem. The reader is drawn to the intimacy suggested by my and I. Don't confuse topic and theme. The topic of this poem is death or love, but the theme of this poem would be the poet's opinion about death or love. Another word for theme is intention or purpose. Try to figure out the theme of this poem. So you're supposed to do that on your own, but I'll also help you with the answer. So here it is. The poet shows us that the deeper the love, the greater the sense of loss. The lover or the beloved or the person he was in love with was such an integral part of his life that his loss is almost impossible to bear. It seems impossible to him that life can continue for anyone. Loss can kill hope for those left behind, and that is the real meaning of despair. Okay, no hope. Both death and love is inevitable. We lose our loved ones. The poet could also be commenting on how one must love within death. The speaker's silliness and overly exaggerated nature. Shame, I wouldn't say that he's silly, but anyway, reminds the reader how we need to be in acceptance of our loved one's death. Okay, so guys, I hope you understand this poem a bit better. This is part one of the Funeral Blues series. Part two, we will continue and we will go over past exam questions and how you should answer your exams. And part three, we would look at a Funeral Blues essay question. Okay, so once again, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it helps with you to understand and with your exam. Please give this video a like and please comment below. It will take you not even a minute to do that, so you can let me know anything if you understood a bit better. If you have any further questions, you can pop it in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet to this channel. We will be looking at all the poetry in the grade 12 syllabus. And once again, don't forget to share, right? There are many students out there that need extra assistance, so please share this with them. Perhaps you can help somebody understand better. Okay, so I'll see you guys soon in part two in this video series. Thank you.